Welcome to the Hardware Asylum podcast, or as you probably have noticed, videocast again for the second time around. So we are social distancing podcast slash videocast slash blogging part two.
Part two. And I got Darren right there somewhere.
So you must be, did I get it right this time? That way.
Yeah, that's me.
Not that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, believe it or not, I've been getting some comments about the video cast and how at least one person really likes it. I suspect that they haven't listened to the quality of the original Hardware Asylum podcast that has been going on for over 100 episodes now.
Well, you know, the kids these days, they like the video.
Yeah, that's true. Thing is, he's not a kid. Nope,
well,
not a kid. But if we get a lot of good responses from this, then, maybe the video podcast will be a normal thing. Or maybe we'll do like a Patreon thing where we stream the video as we're recording the regular podcast. And then we can send out that link to people.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, maybe.
But then we would get all of our little chit chat and the peek behind the curtain. Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's pretty good.
Some people like that. And you get to listen in on the 3 hours of arduous recording for a half-hour episode.
We should talk about tech.
All right.
So I thought, Dennis, I saw this week that you had posted some news about yet another new and exciting motherboard launch.
Yeah, so ASUS contacted me saying, hey, we have some new motherboards coming out. We would like you to help us spread the news. So we have the ASUS Z490 Comet Lake. This is an LGA1200 motherboard system for the new Comet Lake processors. Now the new... Oh, go ahead.
There's a Comet Lake. I feel like they're starting to reach a little bit with all these different... I guess there are a lot of lakes in the world, don't get me wrong, but why couldn't they just call it the Comet chipset or the Comet motherboard? That at least sounds cool. Does it always have to be a lake?
That is a very good question, and I do not know the answer.
When will the lakes end? When will they dry up, Dennis? I want to know.
Maybe when they finally change something. Like, we had, Nehalem. That was the LGA 1366, right?
Right.
That was actually a really good processor generation. I remember Coppermine. Do you remember Coppermine?
Yeah, that was a big step.
That was Pentium 3. That was a long time ago. And then we've had, Skylake and KB Lake. Yeah, I don't know. Lately, they've all been lakes. And supposedly, they exist somewhere in the world. So maybe Comet Lake is really a hole in the ground from the comet that came down to cause an earthquake or something.
Well, that may be. It doesn't feel like it's been that long since we talked about the last chipset, the 390?
390. Yes. That was for...
390?
Yeah, it was, 390. That was for the 9 series, or the 9900K Core i9. We had some really good motherboards during that generation. That was for Coffee Lake.
Coffee Lake, still ridiculous lake. I have to say that all these Z numbers are reminding me of the Nissan cars now, because we're in the Z3s and the Z4s, and it just makes me feel like we need to, go out and do some drifting on these motherboards.
Well, maybe we can if we get into the right edition of the Z490. So in the article, I have a chipset map. Basically, we have the LGA 1200. The socket basically has more pins in it, but the dimensions are the same as the LGA115X, which means that the CPU coolers that we have now for our current systems will work on this new generation.
Oh, that's good news. It's almost like the AMD model there.
Almost. We have dual channel memory, just like all of the Z Edition processors.
Okay, now I want to stop you here because I'm pretty sure that still says DDR4.
Yes, DDR4. We do not have DDR5 yet, nor do we have PCI Express 4.0. We're still rocking 3.0 down here in the corner.
And still USB 3.2.
But 3.2 Gen 2, it's actually pretty
Oh,
fast. It's good
all
stuff.
right.
Yeah. It supports DisplayPort and HDMI, so it appears that all of the 10th generation CPUs have a built-in video controller.
Okay.
A couple of the 9th generations did not, like the 9900 T, I think, didn't have a video processor in it, which was kind of weird. It just made the CPU a little cheaper and it overclocked a little better.
Yeah.
We have a list of motherboards here that will be available from ASUS. The ones that are going to be available at launch, we have the ROG Maximus XII Hero, the Strix Z490E Gaming. These are a mouthful.
Nice.
The Tough Gaming Z490 Plus, the Prime, we have a couple of Primes, and then the ProArt. And this is basically a workstation class motherboard designed for content creators. And then we have an entire list of other ROG motherboards as well. Some familiar names. We have the Formula, the Extreme, the Apex, which is the overclocker board. We have an entire line of Strix Z490 pick a letter. We have the H, the G with Wi-Fi. We have the A and the I. And they kind of got away from like the I being an impact and stuff like that, which is a little weird. We have another.
That's a lot of motherboards.
That is a lot. And that's not even the entire list because we have a whole bunch of Prime boards as well. This is basically a map of where each one of these motherboards fits within their marketing segment. So we have the ROG motherboards at the top of the triangle, the Tough Gaming below it, ProArt, which is a workstation class on the side of Pro over here, and then Prime is being the mainstream. These boards are for business and OEM builders and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. What's the little circle there? I can't quite make it out on the screen here.
Oh, that just is an ASUS badge.
Ah.
It's just a logo. And we have the ProArt Creator. I think I have a better picture of this. So I'm going to see if I can pull that up real quick. This is the Z490 ProArt Creator. Pretty plain in terms of a motherboard design. It doesn't have any of the fancy shrouds. It doesn't have any of the fancy reinforcements on the memory. There's only a single line here for the M.2 cooler, but it does support 3 graphics cards.
So I have to say the color scheme is new, at least for me. And is there a significance to the 10G that I'm missing?
The 10G is a 10 gigabit network connection. That's
nice.
What this guy is down here in the corner. It's an add-on board that plugs into the PCI Express slot. The next boards are the Tough Gaming, the ROG Strix. We can pull over a better picture of the Tough Gaming board. So here is the Tough Gaming, the Z490 Plus with Wi-Fi. So this particular board has Wi-Fi on board. It follows the Tough Gaming Alliance color scheme. So any of the Tough Gaming Alliance products that are available, like the memory that we could get from Crucial, will match in terms of color scheme, color theme, and compatibility.
Do I see backlighting?
You do see some edge lighting right there. Yeah, it does have the ASUS Aura.
Not bad. And that's towards the entry level, you say?
Mm-hmm, it is. So this particular board, if you see here, it has one PCI Express slot for a graphics card. The idea is that the person buying this board is on a budget, so they don't necessarily need to have compatibility for 2 graphics cards.
Okay, so working our way up. Show me the good ones. What you got? They're ROG stuff.
All right, so we have the ROG Strix, the Z490i. This is the impact board that I was telling you about.
Oh, it's so little.
It's dinky small. This is a mini ITX motherboard, and the interesting thing here is, as with all mini ITX motherboards, they are full featured. It just has Wi-Fi, it's got onboard video, and it has double stacked M.2 slots.
Stacked?
Stacked. So this area right here, down here at the bottom, this is where the M.2 cooler is. And if you pull that cooler off, you have a spot for 2 M.2 drives on top of each other.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty darn awesome, really.
Keeps the size down.
The next board is the Z490E.
Ooh, that is pretty. Is that a light up paneling that I'm seeing there on the back?
So this panel, and this panel all are backlit with RGB. So they will do a rainbow effect as they light up and whatnot. So in terms of specs, this particular board is at the top of the range, so to speak, of the ROG Strix line. And the Strix line sits as, we may or may not know, we have the Maximus, which is the high-end ROG, and then we have the Strix, which is designed mostly for gaming. And this particular board, as I mentioned, is full-featured. It's got a 14+2 VRM, phase VRM.
Nice.
It supports DDR4 4600.
That is impressive. Well, it's not DDR5, but it's dang fast.
It's super dang fast. Well, and this is, of course, overclocked because the Comet Lake out of the box supports 2933 megahertz memory. And it...
Wow.
3 PCI Express 3.0 16x slots. You can see it here, here, and here. And it has a couple of the, like here's that Pro Audio, that the it's a Supreme FX S1220A audio controller. They put that on a lot of the ROG boards.
Still, it's a great looking board there. Now, I know that they had, or they were talking about doing some that had programmable screens on them in this generation. Have you seen any of those?
Oh, so that particular feature is limited, as far as I can tell, to the Maximus formula, which I believe is on the next page in my review.
Nice.
So we have here the Maximus 12, Public Gamers Maximus 12, the 12 Hero Wi-Fi. Now, the interesting thing about the 12 Hero Wi-Fi, I'm going to pull that into the browser window here. Look at all that stuff that it comes with. It's got stickers, it's got the little shark fin antenna. And
Oh,
look at this. This is a fan that cools the VRM, which is pretty darn cool.
interesting. Where's the fan mount?
It mounts in this area up here. It's actually it's a feature of some of the, not all boards have it, but it's the MOS or the MOS VRM cooler design. And it allows you to mount a fan and cool the VRM. So the Maximus 12 Hero Wi-Fi is, in a sense, just like the ROG Strix that we saw back here, in terms of what it supports at the hardware level, I should say.
Okay.
So as the name suggests, it has Wi-Fi on board. Since it is a Maximus board, it supports DDR4 4700 plus, which means that this one has overclocking support. We have the ROG buttons right here, the benchtop buttons in the upper right. Has an oversized VRM M.2 PCH coolers.
Wow.
3 PCI Express 16x slots. And the Wi-Fi, as I mentioned. And it does have the Supreme FX S1220 audio controller. So from a hardware standpoint, it is virtually the same. However, they did add some tweaks to allow the Maximus level of overclocking. It has a lot more covers, and the RGB lighting is handled slightly different. Now, you had asked about the little screen. Now, on the previous versions of the Maximus formula, this area right here was an OLED screen. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to be on this edition or not. It doesn't actually say in any of the documentation that I have.
Right.
But in terms of specs, this one is supports DDR4 4700 plus. It does come with a 16+0, so it doesn't have any extra power phases, but it has a 16-phase VRM. Technically, a lot of them have a 16-phase VRM, but they're split up, so they have a couple of power phases going to other items on the motherboard.
Right.
It has the Cross-Chill EK3 hybrid heatsink, and that allows you to run water here to cool the VRM. And I posted this in the news on Hardware Asylum. I thought it was really the stupidest thing ever, and I should pull this up. But EK released a bridge for this particular motherboard. And what it does, this bridge allows you to have 2 water inputs. So water in, and then it will go down and out into the VRM and then back into the CPU.
All right.
So what you have
CPU
to,
VRM all in one, Dennis.
yeah,
Saves
well,
time.
the thing is though, you have to buy an EK water block to put over top of the CPU, and then you put this bridge on top of everything. That is why it's kind of dumb.
It's like a stack there. I have to admit, when I first saw this picture, I thought they were making an EK edition of the motherboard because there's all this EK branding everywhere.
Yeah, and that would be pretty darn sweet. Or if they made it a full coverage block, not necessarily over the entire motherboard, but where you remove this cross chill heatsink, and then you put your CPU in and cover the VRM and the CPU at the same time. That's what I thought it was
Big old
originally.
fancy unit.
Yeah, but instead it's just a bridge where we have 2 water inlets, and now we can cool 2 items with 1 set of water inlets.
Well, it does look pretty cool, but and it lights up nice, which is always pretty and fun, and I have to say it'll look good in a windowed case. I'm a little nervous about what sounds like a lot of additional potential failure points, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential for leakage there. But then again, for instance, in your machine, we have 2 EK water blocks. When we put the bridge across there, there's only a small O-ring in each one of the water inlets to seal up the entire unit. So
that's true.
EK has been pretty good about being able to seal things up, as provided that the machining is done correctly.
No, I certainly like to use their products for building. They don't mess around.
That is true. All right, next we have, here's the formula that we just talked about. Now we have the gamers, or Republica Gamers, Maximus XII Extreme.
Extreme!
Yes, Extreme! Extreme cheddar! All right, so, we have 2 versions of this board. So here we go. The first thing that you may notice is that the motherboard is bigger. It's wider.
Yeah.
There we go, camera. It's on a eATX form factor. So it's bigger.
Oh, bigger.
Bigger.
More coverage. Bigger.
Now, it has the same memory support as the formula. It has the same VRM as the formula. It has a different VRM cooler. It has an aluminum I/O shroud, which I guess the others don't. I'm not sure how that actually works. It only comes with 2 PCI Express 16X slots. The idea is that, if you're going to be running some big video cards, you only need 2 slots. And this particular board comes with a Thunderbolt 3 expansion card, dual network plus Wi-Fi, and it has the same SupremeX S1220 audio chip.
Nice.
Now, visually on the board,
Ooh, pretty lights.
Yeah, underglow. On the motherboard itself, you'll see that we have the DIMM2 slot over here. This is where your M.2 drives are going to be inserted. I think it supports more. I can't tell. I think it does.
Yes, I see it. 2 plus 2, right in the middle of that red, between the 2 red lines there on my notes.
Oh, okay.
2 of the 22110s and 2 of the 2280 types.
Oh. See, I have my screen share so Darren can see this stuff. Yeah. You're right.
Cheating. I looked at the notes.
Yeah, it supports 4 M.2 drives. 2 of them will be on this M2 slot, and then 2 of them will probably be right here and right
Under
here.
that giant shroudy looking thingamajigger.
Yeah. RGB lights everywhere. We have the benchtop controls for overclocking. We have 2 headers for basically USB 3.2. And as you can see, we have 2 8-pin CPU power headers at the top.
Nice.
This particular motherboard is not going to be cheap. We're looking at probably around $750.
Ouch.
Yeah, but you get everything. This is basically the epitome of what the 10th generation Z490 chipset can provide in terms of a motherboard, at least from ASUS.
Well, yeah, it is impressive. That is for sure.
Now, there's one final board. This is the one I'm most excited about.
Oh, you tease, but there is one better.
There is one better. All right, so this is the ROG Maximus XII Apex.
Ooh.
Now, this particular motherboard, I have a previous Apex board, and I loved it. This is the board that's designed for overclocking. It's designed for memory overclocking, designed for CPU overclocking, designed for video card overclocking. It's just basically speed is what it's designed for. It does have all of the creature comforts that you have come to expect. It does have the same audio chip. It has RGB. It has a DIMM2 slot here, which supports the 2 drives. We have 1 drive slot on the board itself. I don't know exactly where it is. I think it's up here in this region. Now, the one thing you will notice, it only has 2 memory slots. And this is because it supports DDR4 5000 plus.
Wow. Is anybody making 5,000 plus?
Yeah, G-Skill has a couple of sticks of that stuff.
Wow.
But the 5000 plus is also overclocked because, again, the default is 2933. So obviously, to get to 5000, you got to have a really good CPU and you got to have some really good memory to go along with it. The board has been designed for this particular feature because it only has 6 layers in the PCB, whereas, for instance, the Maximus Extreme has 8 layers. The Formula has 8 layers. The Hero has 8 layers. A lot of the lower end Strix boards have 6 layers just to keep them cheaper. But in this case, since we only have 2 DIMM slots, the 6 layers reduces all of the internal noise that happens when electrical circuits cross each other.
That is impressive. 5,000 plus.
5,000 plus, it's awesome. And basically it has, the 2 16x slots. We have 1 4x slot, which it could be for an external card, could be for, the M.2 drive, an external one, so you could add even more. And then it has a 1x slot down here, so you can plug in your sound card and stuff.
And it's got a really interesting cutout there. I like that. I noticed that on a couple of the other boards, becoming a little bit more common, sort of asymmetrical shape to them.
Yeah, well, the cheap way to cut a PCB is to go straight, and then round the corners just because we want to be, detailed. To do this sort of die cutting into the PCB layer, that's really expensive. It adds a lot of cost just to the fact that that's how we're going to make our board. EVGA started doing that with a couple of the dark boards. And I want to say that they got the idea from the Apex. I think it's kind of cool. It adds a lot of detail to the board and it makes it stand out when it's on the test bench, which is really where this board's going to live most of the time.
Oh, yeah, it's really impressive. And I see we get a little bit of extra lighting on this one too, which is nice to see. I mean, traditionally the high-end overclocking cards don't have those kinds of bells and whistles all the time.
No, they do not. So we didn't talk specifically about processors. I thought we could do that right before we wrap up.
Yeah, I know that there is a recently announced new round of processors from Intel. I believe that's where you're headed. It is. Oh,
yeah.
Yay.
So this is the 10th generation Core i9, i7, i6, i3 line of processors using the LGA1200, 1200. There you go. Socket.
Now, I have to stop you because I recall trying to think about how they were going to do the numbers on this, and they went with 10900K.
Right. Now, in a previous podcast, if you may or may not remember, we were talking about the 10900K and how it was supposed to beat Ryzen, for instance, and how it was supposed to, be faster and stuff. The thing was, in that article, and we kept misquoting it, they were talking about this 10900. It's the X processor. So the interesting thing about this is Cascade Lake. whereas the LGA 1200 is Comet Lake. So it's a different process. This is an X series processor. It has 10 cores with 20 threads and a base processor frequency of 3.7 gigahertz.
Right.
And it has the same memory, DDR2933.
Oh, that just sounds so slow now.
Yeah, well, and it's quad channel memory as well because it's on the LGA 2066, so it requires the X299 motherboards. Contrast that with Comet Lake, we have 10 cores, dual channel memory, and they're talking about a boost clock, a boost 3.0 of 5.3 gigahertz.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'll link this down in the show notes so that you can come out and check it out. But basically, the author of this is recanting everything that Intel said about their new generation of processors. We have Turbo Boost 3.0, and it has a velocity boost feature that they borrowed from mobile processors that allows boost to happen to more than just 2 cores. So if you can super cool your CPU, get it colder than its thermal barrier, it will give you more power. I think that's
Hey,
actually pretty awesome.
I can see why they are getting the enthusiasts excited again.
Mm-hmm.
That's going
And
to set some records.
well, I would hope so. It's the other thing in here that they wanted to call out was how the lid is soldered, and they're using a thicker TIM, which may or may not actually be good for cooling, but that the CPU wafer itself is thinner because it's a different process. So it's I'm assuming it's going to be spread out more with more coverage to the heat spreader, allowing for a better thermal transfer. So we should see lower temperatures on the CPU in relation to like Core i9. Let's see, what else was there? Oh, she was talking about how, hey, yeah, it's all great and awesome, but it's not as good as AMD because AMD has PCI Express 4.0 and Intel is including Thunderbolt 3, but only on select CPUs. And of course, nobody that has a PC uses Thunderbolt 3, so who really cares? And
Yeah,
then,
true.
and then of course, USB 4.0, which is something that Darren had called out earlier. So overall, I mean, here's also the list of CPUs that are going to be available. I suppose the last item to bring up is that we have hyperthreading in the entire line.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we remember in the 9900K region, if you got the Core i7 9700K, it didn't have hyperthreading. I'm like, this is a Core i7. It's supposed to have hyperthreading. What's the deal? Well, Intel took it away and gave it just to the Halo CPU. Well, with this particular generation, we have hyperthreading all the way down to Core i3, which Core i3 has typically had it, just not that many cores. Well, now we have 4 cores, 6 cores, 8 cores at Core i7.
Okay,
Oh,
so I see K's in there. Those are the unlocked overclocker friendly ones still?
yes. So
Excuse me.
the author talked about the T edition being some special mobile version or something. It's the ones that we don't really care about. The K edition is the one that we really want to look at. Of course, we have like the Core i5 10600, 6 cores, 12 threads, 3.3 gigahertz base, not overclockable. If we get a K edition, the base is now 4.1 gigahertz.
That's a big jump.
Yeah.
Oh, but look at that TDP. Wow.
Yeah, goes at 125. Now, over here, this is the max boost. We have a base clock of 3.3, but it's still boosting to 4.8 and 4.4. The K edition is going 4.8 and 4.5 on the all-core kind of boost. So there is a fine line to determine whether or not the K edition is right for you. As a gamer, if you're trying to build a system, I would say K edition is the way to go if you really want to kind of tweak and tune. But if you're just going to put your system together, put in a good video card, and start gaming a couple hours later, you could save yourself some bucks and just get this edition down here. It has the same boost clock. It's going to have the same performance, so to speak. And the same is true at the high end. We have the 10900 5.2, 10900K, 5.3. So this is where that 5.3 gigahertz number comes in. And we have, same as before, 2.8 base clock and 3.7 base clock on the K edition.
Interesting. So they're really going to do a lot with the boost, it looks like, across the whole range.
Yep. Yeah, the boost is, well, they have two kinds of boost now, as it mentioned. There was one we had a single core boost, which is 3.0, and then we have the velocity boost, which is that all core boost. So if you have a good cooler on there, like a good all-in-one, you should have an all boost clock almost all the time, as long as you aren't living in the desert and have air conditioning.
Right. Interesting.
So there you have it. We have the Z490 from ASUS. We have some 10 series goodness, and all this should be available at the end of May.
I know it may be too soon to look into the crystal ball, but what's the target for this if you were looking as an enthusiast to upgrade? Is this, a TikTok thing? Is this a significant jump over the 9th generation? What would you recommend as a kind of a threshold for upgrading?
Oh, that is a really good question. And I'm not sure I know enough to be able to accurately answer that. However, if you are obviously not on 9th generation, like if you're on 7th generation or even something older than that, then obviously, that's your 2 steps, right? So that's an obvious opportunity to upgrade. And we also have to think about like the 8700K, for instance. That was a 4-core processor. And now for the Core i7, that has it has 8 cores and 16 threads. So you could stay with the Core i7 and double the amount of cores or the amount of threads that you can process in your particular build. So now if you have Coffee Lake, that was already an 8-core processor. Unless you're going to go Core i9 and get a couple extra cores, it's probably not worth it. But as enthusiasts, I would probably say, hey, yeah, 10 cores, that's the way to go. Now, the one question that I am still struggling with.
Okay.
We have LGA1200, the 4-core monster. Well, not the 4-core, but the 4 memory channels. The monster CPUs that we like to run ourselves, the high-end desktop stuff.
Yeah.
We have the Cascade Lake, as we just saw. I'll switch back to it real quick. This guy right here is, a $600 CPU. It's not terribly fast. It already has 10 cores, 20 threads, and a base frequency of 3.7. Now, with our new 10th generation Intel, we have dual channel memory, 10 cores, 20 threads, at a base clock of 3.7 gigahertz. In a sense, we have the exact same CPU with 2 less memory channels, but the potential, based off of some of ASUS's motherboards, to run memory a heck of a lot faster than you can on this quad-channel memory system. So that's the real question. Should you be getting a 2066, or you should stick with the LGA 1200 or 12,000, 1200, whatever it is.
Well, very interesting. I'm sure a very budget-minded decision too.
Mm-hmm.
How much do we think it's going to cost to upgrade? You're going to need a motherboard. You need a processor. Well,
and
you want some. You did say there is backwards compatibility, so maybe not all at once. And then new memory? No, maybe not even new memory with DDR4 carrying across.
Well, you still have DDR4. Motherboard CPU, as long as you have a modern sort of system, you should be able to run this stuff.
Well, it's a lot less reduced cost than having to go all the way through a full system like we've had to in a couple of the generational jumps. So
that's true.
Maybe that will make up for some of the cost there, make it a little easier to justify an upgrade. I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. Leave us a note down in the comments or send us an email at podcast@hardwareasylum.com. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good night.